What's going on, everyone? It is the Durf, and today I'm going to be bringing you a build that is the end-all be-all build for everything Endgame for your Prismatic Warlock. This build, it has lots of different variations out there by a lot of different creators, but this build is 100% specific to me and my playstyle. This build is excellent for ability uptime. This build generates a ton of orbs of power. It generates your super in as little as 1 minute, and it actually decimates in all kinds of endgame type level activity, whether you are running raids, dungeons, or GMs, or just regular Nightfalls. It doesn't really matter. The build is extremely potent. You will be able to help your teammates whip champs into next to nothing very quickly, and you will look extremely cool doing it too. You will be able to spam your transcendence. You will be able to be constantly amplified, and it takes advantage of a number of artifact perks as well as a very specific raid exotic weapon as your main form of ad clear. So if you've been looking for a build that is the end all be all, or you are wondering, hey, what kind of build are you running that you think could potentially break the rest of the season? This is that build for episode Heresy. I'm hoping this build finds you guys well. If you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you are looking for help for your fellow guardians, send them my way. So without further delay, let's get on into it. So a quick caveat to the build that I have here. This is what I would call probably the most specific build that I have made virtually at any point during any of these how-to videos and build videos that I've been doing. And what I want everyone to understand is this build works for me. It works for my play style, and it is incredibly specific in what I have it to be. So when you're looking at this and you're going through all the different options that I'm going to present to you, understand that there's going to be very few opportunities to substitute in and out other things that you might think work better or might synergize better. This build has pretty much everything that I need, and it centers around my style of aggressive play as well as my occasional love to sit back and just take my time. So I understand this won't be a one-size-fits-all, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware. I am aware that it is a specific build to me, and I know that there's others out there that have similar builds to this, but as far as what works best for me, this is what works best for me, and I'll go through and explain why. And if it's something that you want to adopt to how you guys want to play, that's even better, because you'll already have essentially a walkthrough video of how to work the build as it stands in and of itself. So just want to put that out there. I know there's probably going to be a lot of debate on, hey, is this really the best build that he could have done with this? In my opinion, it is, because it fits my play style. However, I'll give you guys the very few options to switch it up as we go through the video. So as long as we all kind of understand that, I think it'll make it a little bit easier, because when I say that this is the best build that I've made personally for myself that helps me in endgame content, I do truly mean that. But there's no reason that you guys can't switch up a few things for yourselves. So as long as we're all good on that, let's keep it moving. So we got the Prismatic Warlock subclass. My personal super of choice is Song of Flame. There's a couple of reasons that I like Song of Flame. Number one, I like that it is a roaming super, and given the weapons that I am using, I am not generating a ton of splash damage. So the ability to get my super back within about 45 seconds to about 1 minute and 15 seconds when it's extremely busy on my screen makes it very attractive. The only other roaming super that you could pair with this would be Storm Trance. But the reason I don't like this is because Storm Trance doesn't give you Radiant. When you are Radiant, you deal additional damage, you pierce barrier champion shields, and because you are going to be maining a solar weapon, you also have the benefit of a discounted harmonic siphon for your helmet mod. And that doesn't even count that you're going to be literally lighting the entire battle screen on fire and stunning unstoppable champions if there are any. But this is still the most powerful roaming super I think that Warlock offers in the game. And it pairs beautifully with this build because when you're all out of everything else and you pop your super, you get everything else back in return. And I'll kind of go through all that here. For abilities, Phoenix Dive is my recommendation, Burst Glide, Arcane Needle, and the Threadling Grenade. The reason I have the Threadling Grenade is I don't really want to necessarily have to aim my grenade. I also want additional ways to generate Darkness Transcendence energy. My main playstyle here is going to be using these for the Darkness Transcendent energy and then spamming abilities to get additional Darkness Transcendence energy since I'm going to be maining a light energy weapon. For aspects, my first aspect is going to be Weaver's Call. Activating my class ability generates Threadlings, and Threadlings, of course, attach to any nearby target and track to them and deal damage. This one I like because I have additional ways to generate damage. My main goal is to generate as much tick damage as possible. And you might be asking yourself, well, Durf, why don't you have Feed the Void on? Why do I need Feed the Void? Well, I'm going to get to that in a second, but essentially I'm not worried about the increased grenade energy recharge. And I have there's a fix built into this build already that gives me additional health basically at any time that I want. I also don't need the Bleak Watcher turret because I'm not using a grenade that I want to convert. And I don't care about the Hellion because quite honestly, it doesn't fire fast enough. I'm activating Weaver's Call to get instant damage as soon as I hit the ground essentially. So I'm activating this in a group of enemies, and then I'm transitioning into other abilities. The second aspect is going to be Lightning Surge. This is going to be my main play, is generating as many jolting strikes as possible. So that's why I have the Arcane Needle as my main melee, because Lightning Surge is going to help me stun overload champions as well as debuff targets in a group. And when you are running higher end activity, arc debuff targets do take a little bit of increased damage. And oh, by the way, since they are beefier, any non-overload champ, and I'm not talking about barrier and or unstoppable, they are all going to be jolted, so they're going to be moving slower. So my goal is to get my melee back as fast as possible and use that to generate an absurd amount of orbs of power. And I have a way to ensure that you generate even more orbs of power than some of my other builds. My first aspect is going to take care of what I would like to call my reason for not having Feed the Void on. When you pick up an orb of power, you're going to get Restoration. Restoration intrinsically regenerates health and shields over time. It cannot be interrupted by taking damage. And if you are running a GM or a Master Strike or a Master Sector or anything where virtually every enemy that you come in contact with is going to be causing you problems pretty much at all times because they're going to be increased aggressively towards you, Restoration cannot be interrupted by any of that. That's another reason why I have Song of Flame as my super and not Storm Trance, because Bolt Charge isn't going to give me any of that. Overshield isn't going to give me any of that. Frost Armor isn't going to give me any of that. And of course, Woven Mail, all that gives me is reduced incoming non-precision damage. So Restoration gives you your health back. I'm maining a light energy weapon for my melee, so I'm getting that back, and I'm using another fragment here that I'll get to in a second to generate additional Darkness Transcendence energy. So this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Facet of Awakening is my second fragment. Rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows generates an elemental pickup for the matching damage type. Here is another reason why I am maining a solar weapon and a solar super. Fire sprites grant grenade energy, and since I'm going to be spamming a solar weapon and a solar super, I'm going to be seeing fire sprites all the time. which means I'm not going to be hurting for grenade energy, which means what do I need to activate Devour for if I'm running something that complements in such a universal way? Whether I'm using my super or I'm using my main solar weapon, what am I missing out on? Any rapid kill I get is going to give me a fire sprite, so that's going to give me my grenade energy, and I'm already generating melee energy back because I'm using a light class or a light damage weapon. And I also have Arcane Needle and my Threadling Grenade, as well as Lightning Surge, which generates their own transcendence energies. So I'm not really hurting for grenade energy. What I want is to be able to build up that transcendence bar so that I can pop transcendence and use it virtually infinitely in a loop with my grenade, my transcendence grenade. So anything that I can do to make that happen faster, like generating elemental pickup when I'm outside of transcendence energy, that's going to be ideal. Next up is going to be Faceted Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. So again, I'm using my Arcane Needle, my Threadling Grenade, my Weaver's Call to generate darkness transcendence energy, as well as get me my grenade back. I know it kind of sounds funny using your grenade to get your grenade back, but hey, that's what it is. I'm using my light energy heavy weapons to get my melee back. But because I'm running solar, every time that I generate a fire sprite, which means I'm dealing damage to get my melee back, I'm picking up a fire sprite to give me grenade energy back as well. So literally this thing is going to synergize perfectly if I just play it the way that it states on the screen and don't overthink it in my head. Next up is Facet of Sacrifice. While you have an Arc Solar or Void buff, ability Final Blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. So this is another reason. Because I'm maining a light weapon as my main add clear medium DPS option, having Weaver's Call on is going to so like let's just say I activate my Lightning Surge and then I pop my Weaver's Call, right? So I'm already going to be amplified. That's, I'm already going to have Bolt Charge. I'm already going to be amplified. If I pick up an Orb of Power from that, I'm already going to be, I'm going to have Restoration. I mean, and when I activate my Phoenix Dive, I'm going to get Cure. So all of these things are going to increase my Darkness Transcendence energy recharge rate. I'm not really ever going to be hurting for it, but that's because of Facet of Sacrifice. I'm going to be using my Arc debuff or my Arc buff or whatever you want to call it to get my bonus Darkness Transcendence energy so that I can pop Transcendence as fast as possible. Facet of Protection is next up. While surrounded, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, the effect is increased. This is going to apply both in and out of Transcendence. Because I'm going to be using Lightning Surge a lot when I'm Transcendent, I also want it to be able to have some protection when I'm not Transcendent. So that's where Facet of Protection gives you, I want to say it's 15 to 20% of a damage reduction from all incoming damage. And all you have to do is be surrounded. And quite honestly, you're going to be surrounded a lot. So that's how this kind of fits into the overall build. And of course, you're going to be going against really tough enemies. So why wouldn't you want additional damage reduction? Last but not least is Facet of Hope. While you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. This is so I can spam my Phoenix Dive with the Weaver's Call more often. I'm not going to be generating Orbs of Power from the Weaver's Call, but what my main goal is to generate damage. Now, if you saw the scorecard at the end of that intro video, you can see that the kills are much higher than the Orbs of Power, but I'm not hurting for Orbs of Power because of the play style. So as you're going through all this, just remember, you're going to have to cycle through your abilities regularly on top of using arguably one of the best weapons in the game to clear the way for you. For stat distribution, I recommend a T10 in resilience, at least a T8 in strength, a T8 in your discipline, and at minimum a T4 in your resilience and a T4 in your intellect. The reason that I'm recommending to get at least a T4 in recovery and intellect is because number one, recovery affects your ability to activate your Phoenix Dive. So your Phoenix Dive at 55 seconds comes out to somewhere around maybe 45, 48, seconds, and that's not counting when you pick up orbs of power, which you hopefully should be doing all the time. And of course, when you activate your Phoenix Dive, you are activating your Weaver's Call, which you don't even need perched threadlings to be able to do that. They're just intrinsic. You're going to get 3 of them off the bat right away. The other reason why you want to have at least a T4 in Intellect is because your super is a 9-minute and 16-second cooldown. Now, as a roaming super, general rule of thumb, if you're dealing insane amounts of splash damage with your weapon on top of splash damage you're doing with all your abilities, that's where people get the 30-second supers from, because you get that super energy back so quickly. But because we're not going to be using a weapon that's known for splash damage, or can really even honestly generate splash damage, it's not going to be as potent at getting your super back. So you're going to be relying on your abilities as well as just being able to deal sheer single target damage with this weapon. The strength is nice because you want to be able to pop your lightning surge as often as possible. And of course, when you are transcendent, that is going to be even more prevalent. And then your grenade being at an 8, a T8, you're not using your grenade really for, I don't know what the word is. You're not really using it for anything other than show. You're throwing it at some red bars, and the threadlings that spawn from your threadling grenade, when they compound together on one target, they should destroy them, even in a higher end activity like a GM. Or you can wear them down with your main weapon and then toss your grenade and get an easy orb of power that way too. So just find ways to work it in there, but you're going to be running a lot of melee streaks here. For weapons, I'm going to go over all 3 weapons that I have in my immediate inventory right now. The Call, Vex Mythoclast, and Pro Memoria. The reason I have the Call equipped is I want to be able to pierce barrier champion shields. The reason I have Vex Mythoclast is because I want to be able to fire a rapid fire fusion rifle that certainly takes primary ammo, be able to stun unstoppable champs, and also take advantage of the artifact perk. I'm running Pro Memoria strictly for the reconstruction and bait and switch combo. I don't have time to be reloading my machine gun when I'm in the heat of battle, so reconstruction pairs perfectly. In fact, it's one of my go-to perks on virtually every weapon that can roll with it. Bait and switch gives you a flat 35% damage increase when you proc bait and switch. The way you proc bait and switch is you dump a round from each of your other 2 weapons into said target, or just targets in general. They have to hit. You pull out your Pro Memoria, and then it's like 7 or 8 seconds of just being able to dump as many rounds into, actually, no, it's not 7 or 8 seconds. I think it's more like 10 or 15. I don't know. I always forget, but you'll see it on the screen because I do it. I'll be doing it in the build test video here afterwards. But the 35% damage buff is better than if you proc Volatile with a Void machine gun. So I'm going to get to, this is the first area where I believe you can substitute things in and out, and it shouldn't affect the overall build. If you don't like the Call, which I recommend with beacon rounds and Vorpal weapon, you can substitute Tanasha's Mastery because it is a chill clip sidearm that will pierce barrier champs. Or if you don't have either of these, but you have Mikkel's Reverence, you can substitute Mikkel's Reverence because it can pierce barriers and shields. I recommend Elemental Capacitor and Hatchling. Most people are probably going to have the Call. I'd say less than most people are probably going to have Tanasha's Mastery. And if you don't ever run raids, I know you won't have Mikkel's Reverence. So go on the Pale Heart, farm your way to getting the Call, shape it, put Beacon and Vorpal on, or, virtually whatever. You want the Dealer's Choice buff because you get your super back quicker, but you want Vorpal buff as well. The other reason why I like the Call is because every time I pick up an Orb of Power, I can spawn Unraveling rounds just floating around the air, which means I can also generate Threadlings or Tangles and all that stuff. So that's additional ways to get tick damage. You don't get that from Tanasha's. You can get that from Mikkel's, but it doesn't quite hit as truck-like as the Call. So my Call is my first recommendation, specifically for the ability to pierce barrier champs. It's extremely easy to use. Not to mention, it's fairly easy to get from the Pale Heart and then shape it in the Enclave. And it's still extremely easy to swap in and out of dump a couple of rounds, switch to your other weapons, proc the unraveling. I mean, virtually the call can go into a variety of activities, even if Strand is not a surge. So the three options for kinetic weapons: the call, Tenacious Mastery, and Mikkel's Reverence. I don't think that there's anything else you can possibly substitute that'll make me be like, yeah, that's better than these three options. All right, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about Vex Mythoclast. So Vex Mythoclast can pair with your artifact, which I will get into here in a second, with particle reconstruction, which basically means rapid hits, rapid precision hits from your fusion rifles, proc particle reconstruction, which means you deal additional damage to the enemy. Vex Mythoclast is an absolute freight train when it comes to the amount of damage it does to a single target. It will not win an Oscar for being able to generate splash damage. It will not win an Oscar for being extremely flashy, and it will not win an Oscar for being the fastest firing thing that you've ever held in your Guardian's hands in your life. What it will win an Oscar for is its ability to fire full auto, 360 rounds per minute, and after you kill so many enemies with this weapon, you can switch to an overpowered linear fusion charge shot that deals ridiculous damage, and you get 3 of them. One of the charge shots that I took last night when I was running was 125,000. That was one shot. Now, the other 2 did not hit 125,000. I think one of them was 72,000, and the other one was like 83 or something like that. Because it's kind of a swirly boss in that Nightfall. Actually, I was using it against a champ now that I think about it. But either way, a primary ammo weapon that can give you over 50,000 and give you 3 shots for it too is just absurd. Now, go to the fact that this thing can potentially hit 100K for each one of those shots. And I mean, what do you get? You pair that with some surge mods, and that 100K suddenly becomes 150, and you haven't done anything. You pair that with some surge mods and maybe some luck, and now this Vex, the linear shot, is hitting for 150, 160, 170 per shot, and you get 3 of them. I mean, that's what it's going to win an Oscar for, and that's why this is the weapon that you made. Now, obviously, this is a raid exotic, so if you don't raid a lot, this is probably where it's going to be sort of a bummer for you in the video. This weapon 100% is worth the time and effort to find either LFG, some friends, a good clan, and go and get this done. It is, of course, RNG, but once you get it, you can go back in and get the catalyst. And to be perfectly honest, the catalyst in Vault of Glass is not that hard to find or to achieve. It is a little bit time consuming. Okay, I will give you that. But I'm telling you, people are trying to get this weapon. People are trying to get the catalyst. So I don't think you're going to have a problem finding people. It's just going to be a matter of having a little bit of luck and dedicating some time. I took a Saturday to get it done. Once I got the weapon, I took a couple hours to get the catalyst or whatever. People were learning as they went. They were reading a guide and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. However you got to do it to get this weapon and get the catalyst, 100% is worth your time. Now let's talk about the perks. Temporal Unlimiter. This is what I was just talking about. Long press. Swap firing modes when fully overcharged. In alternative firing mode, hold the trigger to charge up and fire more powerful linear fusion shots. Again, you get 3 of them. They do increased precision damage, and you'll see the charge meter on the lower left-hand side of your screen. So you're just using this to clear ads or whatever. You'll see the charge meter. Once the charge meter is full, it's not like it'll flash on the screen saying, switch me over. You'll have to check. Long press with a full or empty magazine, it doesn't matter. It'll switch it, and boom, you are ready to fire 3 ridiculously powerful shots at whatever you want. I don't care if it's a red bar or a champ or a boss. They're going to hit, and they're going to hit hard. And if you already have particle reconstruction procced, watch out. They're going to be even higher. Now let's talk about the catalyst. Here's another thing it's going to win an Oscar for. While in full auto mode, final blows with this weapon grant bonus damage, accuracy, and stability for short duration. So while you're just moping around in full auto mode without a care in the world, final blows are still giving you bonus damage. And they're still giving you bonus accuracy. And oh, by the way, the range is 85, so it's not like there's a lot of damage drop off either. And the reload speed's at a 6. So what is not to love about this weapon? Now that particle reconstruction is back, it's even better. So just another reason why I'm telling you, if you haven't gotten this weapon, go and get it. You can see the enemies that I've defeated, it's not as high as I want them to be, but that's simply because I haven't taken the time to make a build for it. But since particle reconstruction came back, I thought maybe it was time to finally readdress it. In the heavy slot, you already know why I recommend Pro Memoria. But substitutes that you can do for it that I don't think are going to be as good are going to be Commemoration with Reconstruction Rampage. The reason for Commemoration is you can proc volatile rounds, or you could run Watchful Eye with Field Prep and Jolting Feedback. You'll get the jolt, you'll get the increased reload speed, and ready from crouching if you're hunkered down in a corner, and your magazine's going to be over 90 there. It's only going to be 72 here, and over here with Reconstruction, I misspoke. It's going to be 144 with Reconstruction here, but over here, it's going to be 164. You get 20 additional rounds, and a bunch of those rounds at the beginning are going to be a 35% damage buff. And oh, by the way, if you do fire this at a champion like an Overload, kill it, you're going to get some bump back to your super energy because of the Dealer's Choice perk. And it's going to be increased because you are already pairing that with the Call. So these are the only two options I would substitute this with. Someone could probably make a case for Retrofit. Someone could probably make a case for Speleologist. No. Just no. I'm telling you, if you're in a GM and time is money, or in this case, time is you living and dying, essentially, if you have to take time to reload your heavy weapon when you're trying to take down a champ, you're going to have a bad time. You don't have time to be sitting there waiting for your belt-fed machine gun to get reloaded. I don't care if your reload speed's at 110 or not, but Reconstruction is going to do it for you. And because you're going to be utilizing all your weapons equally, you know that once you get so low on the ammo for this, you're going to swap back over to Vex Mytho class and start laying into them and hope that Particle Reconstruction procs and you finally finish the champ or beefier enemy or boss before your health runs out. But again, you shouldn't be worried about your health because you're going to be picking up orbs of power that are going to give you health and shield, and they won't be interrupted either because you're running a solar super. So these are the weapons that work best for me. I think they are the weapons that will work best for you. There's virtually no wiggle room in your energy weapon. You got to run it. Vex Mytho class. And as far as the sidearms go, you want to be able to pierce the barriers. Any of these three work. And as far as the machine guns, these two are your top two, but between these two, actually these two are your top three, but between these top three, Pro Memoria is a mile ahead because of the bait and switch opportunity. It just is. And I'll die on that mountain. It doesn't, bait and switch beats volatile rounds all day long. Bait and switch beats jolt all day long. It doesn't come close. You can proc bait and switch in the middle of your reconstruction, reloading your magazine. It doesn't matter. Go back and cycle through your weapons and pull this back out once you're bait and switch to reproc it. So anyways, I know I was on a little bit of a soapbox there, but these weapons literally will do the job for you. You just got to be able to cycle them, and you got to understand the bait and switch perk. You got to understand the balance of the Mythic class, how that works, and keeping your linear shots procced at all times so you can use them at a moment's notice. Don't burn through them, goofily at other, red bars. Save them for champs. I'm telling you. Oh, and speaking of champs, one other thing important that you need to know. In order to stun the unstoppable champs with this fusion rifle, I know you can pull it out and just start auto-firing. You got to aim down the sights and wait a second, literally 1 second. It'll catch up. It'll flash on the screen. As soon as you fire this, it stuns that champ. every single time. If you pull this out and start firing it auto, you'll get through the whole magazine. You won't stun that unstoppable champ. So just keep that in mind. The helmet's going to be what you can debate me on as far as siphons. 100% of the time, you need a harmonic siphon. 100% of the time, you need a heavy ammo finder. And 100% of the time, whatever general armor mod that you need is perfectly fine. Over here, you're going to debate me on whether or not you care about having a strand siphon. Over here, you're going to debate me on whether or not you care about having a void siphon if you decide to run commemoration. And you will also debate me on if you want to run another heavy ammo finder, a special ammo finder, or because you're going to be running a lot of melee strikes, if you want to put hands on so you can proc your super even more ridiculously quickly than you already will. Other than that, there's really no point to running anything else in this slot. For the gauntlets, whatever general armor mod you need is great, but I recommend trying to get it to a point where all you need is a minor one that costs you 1 energy. The reason for that is we're going to be running double heavy-handed. The reason why heavy-handed in 2 slots works is you can get an orb of power every 5 seconds by using your heavy-handed in 2 slots. 1 heavy-handed gives you a 10-second cooldown, 2 heavy-handeds gives you a 5-second cooldown, and 3 heavy-handeds gives you a 1-second cooldown. Now, you won't be getting your melee back every 1 second, but you will have enough melee charges and you will retain melee energy when you are transcendent that every 5 seconds in between throwing your grenade and throwing your melee, you will be able to get not only an orb of power with your grenade, but also with your melee, and you can do it way more frequently. So when you have 3 stacks of melee charges and you got a bunch of enemies headed your way, or you're going into a group of enemies and you want to get the jump on them by calling down a jolting lightning strike, you can do that. Fire your weapon a few times, and oh, by the way, 5 seconds are up. Go ahead and use it again on that group of enemies over there, or that champ, or that whatever boss. Jolt them, stun them, slow them down from shooting at you so you can quickly fire back at them. And oh, by the way, it'll be amplified after you do it the first time. So now it's like you're turbocharged on top of it. Last but not least is going to be firepower. You could easily substitute a solar loader weapon mod in here. It's not worth it, I'm telling you. If you're running a GM and you're not a speedrunner, like the vast majority of people that run GMs are not speedrunners, you're not worried about increased reload speed because you're probably not playing so aggressive that you could die at every second possible during the entire GM run. So don't waste your time on the reload, just play smart. But use your firepower mod to get yourself an orb of power. Those orbs of power, they don't expire. You know, when you're in the middle of a strike, they don't expire until you move on to the next scene anyways. So even if you don't pick it up right away, it will still be there for you. If you can find a way to go and pick it up, get some restoration or shields or whatever, if you get a break in the action. For the chest armor, I know you see that I have a void reserve mod. In the video, I was build testing with a void machine gun compared to what I thought was going to be better, which was the strand machine gun. So I forgot to switch that back. But you want the strand reserves, which is going to pair with your kinetic weapon as well as your heavy. You want 2 damage resistance mods and whatever general mod that you deem fit is fine here as well. Now, I will say if you don't want to put a reserve mod on, what I would recommend substituting it with is either a secondary damage resistance mod or a tertiary resistance mod like void or whatever activity you're going into. The GM of the week is a solar threat, so you can put 2 solar mods on in this way and 1 arc or another void, or just do one of all 3. I mean, that's what most people run when they don't run reserve mods, is they do one arc, 1 solar, 1 void, and that is perfectly fine. The rest of all of these options are virtually pointless. As far as the leg armor goes, whatever general mod that you need is perfectly fine here. I do recommend putting recuperation on for the bump to health, but you can make an argument that you should put on orbs of restoration. You should put on invigoration, which probably makes the most sense here because you are going to be spamming your melee a lot. But I want the health back, and I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of time to get my melee or other ability energies back in general. But you could also make the case to put on another Absolution. On some of my other builds, you guys know I liked running double Absolution. I quite honestly thought that it was awesome. But I've since kind of dialed that back because in this general mod, I find myself running sometimes a 4 energy cost mod. So I've had to kind of tweak how I do it a bit, but I'm not really missing on anything. You also could make an argument if you wanted to take off Absolution. Heck, if you want to take off all of these, you can run a Solar Surge mod or a Strand Surge mod. Because you are going to be generating orbs of power like crazy, you're going to benefit from either one of those, especially the Surge mod on top of the bait and switch routine. Yeah, get out of here with that other machine guns are going to be better. Burst damage from a rocket launcher is going to be better. No, get out of here with that. Bait and switch plus a strand weapon surge mod. I mean, what is that going to give you? Like 50% increased weapon damage per bullet for the 10 to 15 seconds it lasts? Yeah. You don't need anything else. I mean, come on. It's gonna do the job for you, I'm telling you. You gotta make sure you proc it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to mow down whatever's in front of you. And oh, by the way, you're not gonna have to reload it yourself. It's gonna do it on its own. You need to have the role Spirit of Inmost Light and Spirit of Harmony. The reason you want Spirit of Harmony is because you're going to be maining a solar weapon. You'll get additional super energy back from that weapon. The reason why you want Inmost Light, why you want to be cycling through your abilities, is because every ability that you use is going to empower each additional ability. So you throw out your Phoenix Dive, you might be close to getting your grenade back. You throw out your Phoenix Dive, boom, you've got your grenade back right there. And by the way, you get a little bit more on your melee back as well. On top of the stacking bonus, if you already have one of the arcane needles charged in general, you're going to get additional recharge rate if you already have one charged in general by default. Now you add in Spirit of Inmost Light, you're getting that second or third one even quicker. So then you activate your grenade, and you get even more melee energy back. But wait, that's not all. You're going to be getting cooldown to your class ability as well. So all you're going to be doing is essentially cycling through your abilities, which is going to give you decreased cooldown, I guess I should say, for your next ability that you're already planning on cycling through. And it's just going to be an infinite loop of ability spam, ability spam, ability spam, using your Vex Mythic class to just mow the enemies down, understanding that flash is not more potent than potency is more potent. And what I mean by that is, yeah, Vex Mythic class probably could be better if it has some splash options, but I'm telling you, you're dealing damage at, 3, 5, 9, 10k per regular auto firing hit for a fusion rifle, not counting the near possibilities when you get those overcharged shots. You don't need the splash damage. You're mowing down enemies with virtually no effort. And if you're not even running to GM, it becomes even more prevalent that you're not going to even care. Now, if you want to be flashy, yeah, I can understand why that would make someone, not want to use this build. But this build is specifically for purpose. And the purpose is to get you through the hardest possible content you can possibly get into. Now, the only other super that I would recommend you switch into if you're going to be running this would be the Strand Super. The reason for that is because you can get bonus super energy back from your Strand weapons. Those are the only two supers that I would recommend, but because I don't want damage resistance, I want health back and shields back, Solar is still going to take the cake on this for me, and I'll be on that mountain alone if I have to be. But if you build your solipsism like this, then that means in here you can do some interesting things that actually will benefit you even more than some of my other builds. The first one is going to be the Font of Restoration. Collecting any orb of power is going to give you increased cooldown for your class ability, which is your Phoenix Dive, and boost your recovery by 35 points on the first orb pickup. So what does that come out to? That comes out to 83. So I'm already at T8 from picking up 1 orb, which means my cooldown for my Phoenix Dive has already gone from like 55 seconds to, I don't even know what, 30 seconds, 40 seconds maybe. I mean, let's go, right? Next is going to be Bomber. And you could also make the argument to put in Outreach as well. Reduces melee or grenade cooldown when using your class ability. Because you're cycling through your class abilities, you're going to be getting all of these other abilities back as well. And then third and finally is going to be Reaper. Shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns an orb of power. Because it's going to take you probably more than 10 seconds to get your class ability back, you're still, anytime you pop your class ability, your next weapon final blow, I don't care what it's from, is going to give you that orb of power. And the heat of battle, especially in a GM, I don't care where my next orb of power comes from. I just want it. And I want you to get it. The other thing that's going to be awesome about this is between these two, these also are stacking on top of Spirit of Inmost Light. So you're getting your melee back even faster because you've got an additional mod in your armor to get your melee back. And you're also getting your class ability energy back even faster because of the additional, font of restoration. So literally Spirit of Inmost Light on a Solipsism bomb, Warlock bond, on top of restoration, on top of Spirit of Harmony. I mean, I don't know how much more complete I could possibly make this build for you or just for myself, but well, I guess I could unlock the Artifice slot. I'm not even sure why I didn't do that because I clearly have an exotic cipher. But either way, I mean, this is the completion of this build. The only additional thing we got to go over right now is the artifact. And I know some of you are already thinking, well, he's not running Void. He's not running Arc. Seems like he's not going to have much to pick from. You're right. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, I've got Unstoppable Fusion, Overload Machine Guns, and Piercing Sidearms. If you were feeling really froggy and you wanted to run a barrier piercing sniper rifle, you theoretically could swap out a sniper rifle for a sidearm, or a sidearm for a sniper rifle. This gem of the week, though, I don't really think that's going to work out too well for you. I mean, it's very close quarters. There's not a lot of distance shooting. Hypernet current was probably doable. But again, there's not a lot of distance shooting in that boss room or that boss area. And you're constantly getting bombarded with, especially in this game, you're getting bombarded from all different directions with high. Of course, the boss is tanky. So, you're not shooting at the boss from extremely far away. You're just trying to run for your life. You got the wizards, they're swirly. The Hive Knights, they're swirly. I don't think you're going to, want to swap a sniper rifle in for this, but I guess if you really want to try it out, go for it. Second column, I have Volatile Marksman, which is a dump perk. I don't need it. I also have Unraveling Orbs, which is 100% not a dump perk. I am bringing my 2-strand weapons so that if I do proc them at any given time after picking up an Orb of Power, I will generate Unraveling rounds by using them. So yet another reason why I have 2-strand weapons and I'm not switching out of that. Hold the Line, going to be needed for this. While surrounded machine guns and glaives can increase reload speed and stability. Final blows heal you. Again, what do I need Devour for? Because I'm going to be using a machine gun and my final blows are going to heal me. Just another way that I'm trying to think ahead of the curve. Dielectric, defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge. This one it's a dump perk for me, but it's not a dump perk for in general. It doesn't matter if you are the one that debuffs a target with arc energy. In other words, if you're running with a fire team where someone is using arc and you kill that arc, that guy, the arc debuff guy, you get an Orb of Power on top of it. Just make sure, if you're like me and you constantly forget to refresh your Tome of Want, refresh it and get the bonus to get your Orb of Power. And oh, by the way, the intrinsic of this is you're going to get Bolt Charge. Dreadful Finisher. I always recommend finishing every champ that you come across unless you have a fire team that is so underwhelmed by the surrounding enemies that you can dump enough rounds into it to just get it to die on its own. But I always try to finish every champ I also think it gives you a boosted score. Not that that really matters, but it just looks cooler. Flashover. When you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. So these two are going to go in tandem. It's probably important to mention that, oh, by the way, you do have arc in your build, just not your weapons. So you're not going to be running jolting feedback in your heavy or your energy weapons. So what? You've got the lightning surge. That's going to jolt. Though these two are going to pair in tandem. You're going to constantly be amplified. You're going to constantly be generating orbs of power. You're going to get bolt charge, and everything you do outside of running lightning surge is going to give you additional bolt charge as well. That'll pair very well with Horde Shell, which is damaging unraveled targets with a weapon, occasionally spawns a threadling. Any additional tick damage is considered ability damage, especially when you're talking about bolt charge. So again, you want additional tick damage to generate more bolt charge for you to be able to proc lightning bolts as well as get you amplified. Last but not least is going to be particle reconstruction and heavy ordnance regeneration. There is nothing in this column that you will convince me deserves my attention more than those two. I don't care about stunning a champion giving me maximum bolt charge because I'm already running lightning surge. So I will get bolt charge just fine, thank you. I'm also not worried about void flux because I don't have void equipped. I'm also not worried about defeating exhausted or severed targets with weapons that match your super element, grant super energy, because my heavy weapon and my special ammo weapon don't match my super. So that's a waste as well. The only two that matter is particle reconstruction and heavy ordnance regeneration. Heavy ordnance regeneration basically ensures that I'm never going to be hurting for grenade and melee regeneration. Oh, and it gives you damage resistance on top of it. You could substitute a rocket launcher, but you don't have time to wait for a rocket launch to reload. So just put your Promo Mori on and get to work. Particle reconstruction pairs with your Vex Mythoclast. It pairs with the linear fusion rifle shots that Vex shoots. So you are going to get increased damage on top of the increased damage that it procs normally, on top of the increased damage you're going to get from linear, on top of the increased damage that you're going to get from particle reconstruction. So what is that, like 3 or 4 stacking damages bonuses to you? You're not going to convince me that I want something that's got incandescent on over Vex Mythoclast, especially when you pair it with particle reconstruction. Go take it into a GM, go take it into Warlord's Room, go take it into, I don't even care what. Go take it into the new dungeon. Go take it into a nightmare hunt. I mean, virtually any of these things that's going to have champs or beefy bosses or lots of chaos. I'm telling you, particle reconstruction is better than any amount of scorch I can spread between targets. It just is. Because I can mow down enemies without virtually doing anything other than firing my weapon. And the amount of damage I'm hitting is going to be more than any scorch effect is ever going to give me. So that is the build. A little bit long-winded, but again, when I said that this was going to be an ultra-specific build, I 100% meant it. There's virtually no room to switch anything around, with the exception of maybe getting a little bit better roll on my stats so that I'm not dumping 8 unnecessary points into my mobility. I can put those into grenade discipline or even to strength to get me up to a T10. But overall, I'm very happy with the stat distribution of this build. And if you get yours close to this, plus or minus 10 on any category with the exception of resilience, I think you'll like it too. And I think it will hold up very well in virtually any activity. You just got to understand, you are not going to be the flashiest player on the screen, but I can promise you are going to be the most powerful. Just by simple mechanics. You don't have to be a ridiculously mechanic heavy player to make this build work for you. You just have to be moderately aggressive. You can be moderately aggressive. You know, you can. What I'm going to do right now is, I'm going to take us into the moon. I know. But we're not going to have champs, but I just kind of need you guys to see the ability regen, and I don't really want to go into a GM solo to try to demonstrate that, because the first time you step into a GM with this build, not knowing how it's fully working, it's probably going to be overwhelming. So if you guys did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who is looking for that Warlock build, please share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. And if you have been looking for a Warlock build that basically is single target damage specific with a couple of exceptions and puts out ridiculous amounts of numbers with not much effort. I'm telling you, let those people know, hey, check this out. There are a lot of other content creators out there that I've seen that have built around Vex Mythoclast. They've built around Mantle of Battle Harmony. They've built around Solipsism. I truly think mine is one of the best that suits me compared to some of them. I'm not saying the other people doing this won't work for you, but as far as what I'm going for, ease of use, simplicity, it is very specific with the weapon of choice and the role of choice for the exotic class item. The only thing I would say that you could substitute if you don't have the exotic class item with this role, the only thing I can say that you can substitute this out for is going to be Mantle of Battle Harmony itself. You will get an additional perk if you do you'll get increased weapon damage on top of your already absurd weapon damage if you use the solar super, because you'll get bonus to Vex Mythoclast. So the trade-off is that you're not going to get the ability empowerment from the Spirit of Inmost Light. So this one truly is better because the little extra damage that Mantle of Battle Harmony gives you isn't going to make or break you in a jam. It's just not. And anyone that says otherwise is probably lying to you. Plus, not only that, but your super is so much better than relying on your heavy or your primary ammo weapon. So when I'm getting my super, I'm just using it. I'm not waiting for the boss. When you get to the boss room, you get your super meter refreshed on most of these GMs and strikes, and even in Dares of Eternity, you get your super back first, before it even starts. So what am I worried about not having super energy when I get to the boss room? I'm going to have it, and this GM is no different. Now, there are some that doesn't happen. You get to the final boss in Hypernet Current, that didn't happen. But, at that point, you're probably not that far off from getting it anyways. So, are you really going to be using this to do all your damage to the boss? No. You're going to get your super back, and you're going to get your abilities back because that's the play of this build. Hopefully that made some sense to everyone watching the video. I know it seems like I'm a little bit biased towards this, but I'm telling you, once you get used to the gameplay loop, this thing is, you're not wishing that you had a bunch of splash damage. You're just not. You're going to have everything that you possibly need in this build. And if you're running with other peak builds like a Titan or a Hunter or whatever, this thing is going to hold its own too, and it's going to help everyone that you're with. So literally you can't go wrong. Okay, so I'm going to get us over to the moon, and yeah, I'm just going to roll through a couple of things and then we'll wrap it up. So I just spawned in to Altars of Sorrows. Your first order of business is to kill some enemies and get your charge meter up. You can see I'm at 4 of 6 possible stacks. So then we're going to, you see how it's glowing purple? That's when you know particle reconstruction is in effect. So you don't have to worry about how to proc it. It just automatically does it. You see he's still purple. That means I'm getting the benefit. And again, 3,500 per hit on a non-critical hit is pretty darn good. So now that I've got almost all of my overcharges procced, we're going to switch firing mode. So I long press, and now here we go. $65,000, 68,000. And then it automatically goes back to the auto firing mode. So that's how you use Vex Mythoclast in a nutshell. We haven't even gotten to all their abilities yet, so let's do that. So I've got my my bolt charge going. I'm amplified, and of course I've got orbs of power. You see, I haven't really done anything except using Vex Mythoclast and one single ability. And you can see, even though obviously they let some enemies get through the portal, I'm almost fully complete on my super regen. I'm not hurting for my Arcane Needle. You see I've got 3 charges of that. And I'm not hurting for my Phoenix Dive, which I didn't even have to use. But I'm telling you, you're going to be able to use that virtually anywhere, and you're not going to be worried. So I'm going to use it now. There you go. And if I didn't have Bolt Charge, I will now. So here we go. I've switched out of my heavy firing mode, and I'm going to wait until this nightmare comes so that I can show you. 29,000, right? So that's not very great. Now I got 30,000 and then 68,000. You're not going to be hurting for ability energy. And once you get, you know, a little bit of damage. Oh, by the way, here you go. Here's some unraveling rounds in case you wanted to see those. I still got my super energy procced. I've still got restoration proc. That's why I'm glowing. And then one other mechanic here, right there. You see the unstoppable shot was procced. Now I'm dealing even more damage. Procced. Now I'm dealing even more damage. So make sure the unstoppable shot is procced, you know, as often as you possibly can, because you'll deal even more damage to unshielded combatants with that procced. Now, most situations don't allow for you to be 68, 72, 63, and 2 of those shots, that guy was facing away from me. So I'm going to pop my super because it looks like I'm the only one here that can handle this much chaos. Actually, I might be the only one here right now. Oh, no, I'm not. There's someone else here. I'm not really sure what they're using for weapons, but yeah, I mean, and once you're Radiant, you can fire this on top of having your overcharged shot, on top of having your unstoppable shot procced. So that is the Vex Mythoclass build, so to speak, in a nutshell. Not the flashiest in terms of splash damage, but it is going to be the flashiest in the amount of single target damage that you can generate virtually anywhere in the system. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me through this. I understand that this was a longer video, but I truly do believe in what I'm trying to preach to you guys. So one final thing I'm going to show you guys is how to spam your melee. So here we go. There's 1. There's 2. There's my grenade. Here's 3. And by the way, take a look at my transcendence bar. It's still extremely high. So am I worried about my transcendence going down? No. When you pop transcendence, you get all this stuff back as well. So yet another way that you can still be an absolute powerhouse on the field without having to be a Titan or a Hunter or really anything else. Here's bait and switch. And there we go. And you can see what I'm hitting with. 5,000, 5,000. And again, that's that enemy. You know, that number is going to go up or down. And yeah, bait and switch is out. I'm going to restart it. Here we go. Bait and switch. Yeah, so it's a 10-second cooldown. And oh, by the way, there's my fire sprite. You already saw the tangles. Here's all the orbs of power, because I guess I was by myself over here for this one. And that's the build. So you're going to need to get used to the cycle of gameplay in order to take full advantage of everything this build has to offer. But once you get used to it, you can absolutely take this into a GM, a Master Nightfall, a Master or Legend Sector. I was running this through Legend Sector, Master Sectors yesterday. You know, the Solar is not the Surge. Strand was the Surge, but again, I'm not dependent on Strand except for its ability to proc bait and switch and the occasional unraveling rounds. So again, if you did find anything helpful with this video, please consider liking and subscribing, or at least share it with a fellow Warlock lover who is looking for a pure endgame build that they can build into, that not only is extremely easy to use, but it is more powerful than a lot of other builds out there. Again, I'm not saying that my build is the best. I certainly don't want to give that impression that I think that I'm better than anyone. But this build absolutely works the best for me personally, and that's why I think it is one of the best builds you could possibly put on your Warlock. So, Act 2 drops in a couple of days, so I'm excited. We're going to be doing some new builds, and let's have some fun. Act 2 right around the corner. I'm very excited, and I hope you are too. So take care, guys.